Okay, folks, it's time for me to get a little real with you. There's something we have to discuss, and it's very important. So bear with me. We're going to change over really quickly to my desktop recording. So on your screen right now, if I've done my thing correctly, you will see a link up here to a nocensorshipfilter.com. This is a petition site, and it's for a particular petition to block this new copyright bill that they're trying to slip through in the middle of some kind of a budget thing. It says something in here about, but it's called the Smart Copyright Act, and I'll need you to read this whole thing here to get the idea of it, and I'll try to explain to you why you need to sign on this. But anyway, they're trying to slip it in with some kind of a budget or some kind of bait that they have around it. They've slipped it into another bill. So essentially what they're doing is the same thing that they did. I don't remember the specifics now. It's been too long, but they did something similar when they went and passed the, I believe it was the second stimulus payment. They slipped in some unwanted laws in the middle of that stimulus payment. So in order for us to get the stimulus payment or for that to be passed, these other laws had to be passed with it, and that's what they're doing here with their smart copyright law. So you need to be aware of that. And I want to give you a reasoning why this is a bad thing, so bear with me and I'll try to explain this to you. But imagine that you live in a city or near a city or outside a city like New York. And you have to commute from your house to the city to get to work, okay? And you're already dealing with all the traffic jams and the delays and everything. Now, let's say that for the sake of argument, and this is a hypothetical, this is not actually happening, but let's say for the sake of argument that the politicians in New York decided that they wanted to give a stimulus payment to its citizenry. So a bill was proposed, and a stimulus payment was going to come out and help everybody having rental issues or whatever in New York in an attempt maybe to curb the homeless situation or something like that. That would be under some really bright, glowy, really good bait kind of intention. They'd have something really good. They'd make it something really shiny, some really shiny baubles to distract you while they slip in another thing. Let's say inside this stimulus bill that they're going to pass, they slip another bill and it had to be passed with it. And this other bill establishes choke points at every major intersection within New York City. And it establishes checkpoints at the beginning and end of every bridge. And it required that every police officer at these checkpoints would be able to go through your car without a warrant, without reasonable cause, without any kind of legal reasoning to be doing it, but they'd be able to go through with their drug dogs and everything else and be able to look through your car and look for drugs. And let's say that they're doing this under an attempt to control the amount of drugs coming into the city. Would you put up with that? Now, you might be a perfectly innocent, reasonable person, and you're not somebody who breaks the law. You keep your nose clean. You're not going to be smuggling drugs into and out of the city. And you might have previously, before I use this analogy, said, well, if they got nothing to hide, then if they're not guilty, they got nothing to hide, what are they worried about? And I would like to put a pox on every stupid person that has ever said that. The amount of traversities that have been pressed upon society by people uttering stupid phrases like that is phenomenal. I mean, how many black men, young black men, have been accosted by the police and unlawfully searched just under suspicion because they're black? And then they might put up a front or whatever, or try to resist a little because they didn't like being accosted, and then they end up beat up or in jail or shot or killed. Just because you're innocent doesn't mean that you have to tolerate the actions of something like this, like a checkpoint or something like that. That's why we have laws in place. That's why we live in America, not North fucking Korea, okay? We have our Constitution, and that's supposed to take precedent over any law passed since. We have the freedom of speech. We have, there has to be reasonable doubt, and there has to be a warrant for search and seizure, all of that kind of stuff. All those protections are in place to make sure that us American citizens are not hassled and can enjoy a relatively free expression living of our lives as long as we stay within the constraints of reasonable, I say, laws, like don't murder people, for example. Well, this law that they want to pass, this copyright law, is basically a bunch of checkpoints on the internet between you And if you're a content creator like myself and other people here on the server and at YouTube, it's a checkpoint between you getting your content released onto YouTube. They'll have checkpoints all over the place at your ISP. So there'll be records being kept with your ISP. They'll have checkpoints into and out of your various, probably your websites that you're doing. I don't know all the specifics, but there'll be all these checkpoints, and they'll be there to make sure that no copyrighted content slips through. So that's what they're basically trying to do. They're trying to make it sound good. They're trying to couch it in some kind of really attractive other offer, and we have to say no and stand up. And there's a petition there at the link that I'm going to provide at the bottom of this video that you can sign and make sure that this thing does not pass, because it should not pass. We don't need to have this here. It's the same kind of thinking that happened when Mickey Mouse, I don't remember the word for it, but Mickey Mouse was, the copyright on it was expiring. And Mickey Mouse was going to be something that would go out into the world and people could use and not have to worry about copyrights to it. But Disney Corporation, because they did not want that, Mickey Mouse is their mascot, they actually subverted the law. They changed the copyright law, and they made it so that Mickey Mouse would never be something that you could ever use freely within your, there'd be no derivative works. But that law that was passed, the initial one, was made so that there could be creative expression and derivative works and growth and development of artists. All material that's copyright is supposed to expire at some point. That's the way it was supposed to be. Essentially, a bunch of people that have lined their pockets off of the backs of hardworking musicians, people in the movie industry or wherever else. It's like a business. It's like the mafia, These guys want their money, and they're going to stomp all over everybody to get it. And that's what the DMCA is up to, and that's what this whole thing is all about. So we need to say, nope, we're not going to take that, and stand up and fight this. Now, you don't have to sign a petition that I'm linking to there. You might find another one. Be sure to read the fine print and check that you're signing the right petition and the right thing. Be very careful what you sign and what you read, and make sure it's a legitimate site or connected to a legitimate site. But stand up against this smart Copyright Act. Let's make sure this thing doesn't get passed, and stay on guard in case they try and sneak it through another way. I guarantee you that if they can't couch it in this lovely bill that they have right now, this budget or whatever they're doing, if that isn't attractive enough and that doesn't work, they're going to try and couch it in something else, like, for example, a stimulus payment. They'll be very careful. Don't get all caught up under the glamour of, hey, might get $1,200 in a stimulus payment, but basically it's money being paid to make you silent, because you take the money, you get the payment, and then they're going to pass this smart copyright law and then going to screw up the internet and everybody. You don't want the ISP keeping records of what you're doing. That violates your right to privacy. Whether or not you're a law-abiding citizen is irrelevant. What's relevant is you have a right to privacy, not to have your movements and everything tracked. That's why we live, as I said, in America and not North Korea. Please be sure to check out this page. The link is below the description of this video, and sign that petition, and or any other one related to it that you find that's legitimate. Be sure to read the fine print before doing so. If you can contact any of your local government and let them know that you don't want this, make sure you do that. I'm going to do the same on my end. We need to have freedom of creative expression in our country. We need to preserve that and maintain that and guard it jealously, because once we lose that right, we're no better than North Korea or China or some other country like that. So thank you guys for watching this little update video, and appreciate your help standing with me on this issue. It's going to be a benefit not only to the creatives to make sure that this thing doesn't pass, it's going to be a benefit to those that enjoy the work of us creatives. We like to create content for you that you will enjoy and have fun and that entertains you, but we get a bunch of choke points put up in front of us between us and getting our content out. We start getting tracked, and we start getting these false flags. YouTube already has some copyright strikes that are happening against people, even for G418 use of that music for Minecraft, that are invalid, but you can't get rid of the strike. I mean, this whole system is already doing very poorly as it is. We don't need to make it any worse and more clunky than it already is. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the upcoming live stream this Sunday and Monday. That'll be the last one for this particular server, and there should be videos released throughout the next 2 weeks as I try to wrap up and catch everything up. So appreciate you guys, your viewership and your support.